In a stunning new development, Legend Story Studios has announced that Duskblade is banned effective September 24th, 2021.
Right you are, Jim, but more on that after the weather.
What's up, Spikes? Today we're here to talk about the recent Flesh and Blood banned announcement that came out on the 21st of September. So as of filming, it is currently the 25th, so this ban has been in effect for one day, one whole day, but it's been a big one. So
yeah, lots of controversy surrounding this one.
Yes.
I think, especially considering I actually have the card here. We're going to be discussing Duskblade today, in addition to Seeds of Agony, but the bigger one that we want to talk about right now is Duskblade, specifically because this is the first time in Flesh and Blood history that a card has been banned before it was technically legal.
Yeah.
Yeah, Legend Story Studios did come out with a very nice explanation as to why this ban happened, and we're going to link that ban announcement
in the description,
in the description below. But in essence, it was just them admitting that they had made a mistake, that this card was just too efficient. They added it in late as sort of they had another weapon slot they needed to fill. They wanted to do a cool callback to Welcome to Wrath, specifically the Dawnblade. And so they didn't do a ton of
Well, they said they didn't do any constructed playtesting on it.
Yeah.
So they just kind of threw it in for design and flavor-wise. And it turns out that it's fairly powerful.
Yeah. Do you want to go into why?
Yes. So it is.
Talk about this for a second.
We'll just we'll put it up on the screen as well. So Duskblade is a Runeblade weapon. It is two-handed. It has once per turn for one attack. And then whenever you attack with Duskblade, if you've played an attack action and a non-attack action this turn, you put a +1 attack counter on it. And at the beginning of your end phase, if you haven't played a non-attack action card, you remove all the counters from Duskblade. But playing Runeblade, you're basically never not playing non-attack actions, and you're almost always playing one or two non-attack actions into an attack card. So it is going to get big very quickly. It needing to attack for one is just insane compared to the other Runeblade weapons. It's hands down the most powerful Runeblade weapon and would get slotted immediately into Viscerai even. I think even in Viscerai it ekes out his blade.
Yeah. Nebula Blade, I believe, is the one that they play.
Nebula Blade. They play Nebula Blade and Chain. It 100% goes into Chain over Nebula Blade and Reaping Blade.
And I think it just is better than Galaxy Black. Even in the better case of Galaxy Black where you're attacking for 4, because really like this attacks for 4 after
turn 3.
After two turns of doing your thing. This starts in play. It starts that snowball immediately as soon as the game starts. So it just ends up being way too powerful, way too quickly. So it is still legal in Blitz.
Yes.
The ban was only effective for competitive constructed. So you can still play this in Blitz. And I think that does rein in the power level quite a bit because the games aren't going on for, tens of turns. I've seen competitive constructed games go for a full 50 minutes.
Yeah.
And
15, 18 turns,
Yeah, and so if you're doing the thing, which your deck wants to do anyway, play a non-attack and an attack action card in the same turn, you're getting a counter every single turn. I think that one of the mistakes that they made here, the design mistake, was they changed the clause for the counters falling off from if this hasn't hit to if you haven't done the thing, like you haven't actually... satisfied the clause.
Well, it makes sense in the way that they're designing it in a similar way to Dawnblade. So Dawnblade gets counters for connecting a second time each turn, and then the condition to lose the counters is not connecting at all. So that mentality went into this. So you have to play an attack action and a non-attack action and attack with Duskblade to get the counter. If you don't play a non-attack, you lose the counters. On paper, that seems right. Like it seems... like it's a fair mechanic and how it should be. I don't think it should have existed at all. Well, I mean, that's kind of like a mean thing to say. I think it's really cool. I love playing Runeblades. It is great. I think it just is too powerful specifically in a world where Chain was and might still be one of the top decks. We don't know how it's going to flesh out after the ban we'll talk about in a minute. But just giving them access to, it's like taking away one of their powerful interactions and giving them a second one. It doesn't actually really do anything.
Yeah. Even if they had just banned seeds, like the fact that seeds was banned, we'll get into that a little bit in a little bit later in the video. But even if they had just banned seeds, I think that Chain still has more than enough resources to make Duskblade good.
Yeah, I mean,
so it did need to be both. It wasn't a one or the other situation.
Yeah, you can easily in Chain play like Shadow Puppetry, Bound and Demagogue, make a shackle, attack with Dawnblade, it's got a counter. That's not even like a hard sequence to pull off in a turn.
And like most of those things are free. I think they're actually all of those are free.
Yeah.
So you need one resource, two cards that can be in your banished zone, and then you attack with your weapon.
Yeah.
I think the thing that Duskblade being too powerful is really exemplifying here is the fact that as of right now, there aren't really that many ways, or even any ways that I know of, to interact with weapons in Flesh and Blood. Currently, right now, they're like a protected class. You can't, there aren't effects that sort of make you, or like make your opponent not being able to attack with their weapon, or remove the counters from it, or anything like that. So it is just sort of this thing that
will always be there.
Will always be there. I think if there was a way to, if there was a card like in Brute or something that was like remove all plus attack counters from target weapon, it would be relatively niche, but I think that that's a good source of counterplay for an effect like this.
Or even a, if this hits, they can't attack with a weapon next turn.
Yeah. Like I think that sort of thing would, again, reel it in quite a bit more. But because those effects don't quite exist yet, I think that Duskblade it's a little bit ahead of its time for power level.
The reason they gave for leaving it, though, in Blitz, not just outright banning it in both, is Blitz games don't tend to last very long compared to Classic Constructed. And with things like Ira, Dorothea, and Kano being very big aggressors, the less aggressive versions of, say, Viserai, maybe even Briar, we don't know what Briar is going to look like yet, and some chain decks won't be able to abuse this fast enough to outpace the more aggressive decks. So that's why they're saying it's staying in Blitz, but they are saying they are keeping an eye on it.
Yes, they're going to be keeping an eye on that, as well as what's the other card that they're currently on their watch list, as it were?
Well, that's actually a good segue to talk about Seeds of Agony then.
True, yes.
Because it is part of the Seeds of Agony ban. They said that going into the Calling Las Vegas, they were very aware of how prevalent Chain was in the meta. And even though Prism deck took down the whole Calling, and even they were saying in the stats he beat 7 different Chain decks during the weekend, Chain still represented a significant portion of the meta. As we said in one of our previous videos, it was 5 out of 8 top 8 decks were Chain. And it's just, Chain has so many efficient tools. And one of the most efficient tools they have was Seeds of Agony. Seeds of Agony costs 0. It can be played from your Banished Zone. It has Go Again. It gets in for incidental arcane damage, chip damage when you attack. And it has Blood Debt. It's also a Shadow and a Runeblade card. So the Blood Debt and the Shadow specifically play with Shadow of Ursur. When you attack with Shadow of Ursur, you banish a card. If it's a Shadow card and a card with Blood Debt, it gets Go Again. So there's a lot of, it ticks so many boxes in the toolbox that there's no reason not to play 9 copies.
It's kind of crazy how well just the Chain deck in general, how every piece sort of meshes together and everything plays off of each other. It's just a very highly efficient deck. It's very impressive.
And it also, it incidentally turns on cards that are maybe not as good, like Rip Through Reality is 2 for an attack, but if you deal arcane damage, it has Go Again. So you throw out a Seeds, you play Rip Through Reality, you deal the arcane damage, now it has Go Again. So it fills a spot that is very, I don't want to say necessarily important, but it's just a spot that generates so much value and so much stuff, and you're just playing so many things. So part of the reason they're looking at it is Chain turns can become fairly predictable and basically unfun to play against and also unfun to watch.
Everything sort of has the same flow. You don't really deviate from this sort of, I'm going to play 2 Seeds from my Banished Zone, play this Shadow of Ursur, banish another Seeds, and this has Go
take
Again.
3 Arcana or take 2 Arcana, play
Like
Oh,
you're able to do a bunch of things. All of it costs 0. I think the one thing to really pull from this seeds ban is that I don't think it's going to affect the deck that much. I think the card was just an extra piece that was really good that doesn't necessarily pull the deck together.
Yeah, it's not the glue that holds the deck together, but it's just kind of one of those no-brainer, like, you play 9 of these.
Yeah.
So
it's just free in every sense of the word. So
so we'll probably see chain decks still maybe not being as dominant as they were before, because it's not quite as easy to just sort of like start going off. But I think we'll still see them kind of at the top of the meta.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see what sort of changes they make. The other card that, due to the Seeds of Agony ban, or part of the Seeds of Agony ban, I should say, that they were talking about keeping an eye on was Unhallowed Rites. Basically because you just keep being able to recur a card over and over, and it just starts to get oppressive is kind of the word. It's kind of, there's too much. It falls again into the sort of that thing where they haven't gone for it yet because it's not quite as all in where you're playing 9. I don't think you're playing 9 copies or close to it, but it is a card that they have on their watch list for future Classic Constructed ban.
It sort of contributes to Chain is a very aggressive deck, and if your opponent is able to sort of mitigate as much of the damage coming in as possible, Unhallowed Rites kind of allows you to have that end game. It allows you to sort of extend
rebuy
cards, and it's sort of it shores up that weakness that Chain should inherently have. Of this is a very aggressive deck. You're burning through your cards
through your whole library
immediately.
Quickly,
So, but then Unhallowed Rites sort of just allows you to continuously get a little bit more value out of it to maybe push through those extra points of damage after you should reasonably be out of fuel.
Right.
So it's just sort of, again, it's like we said with Seeds, it is just a little bit extra. Like it's not something that Chain really needs. I think it having a weakness, like every deck, that's like a natural consequence of having all these different classes. Each of them should have
a weakness.
And I think that right now the design space that they've explored with Chain, he's like an absolutely full-on aggression deck.
Yeah, they said, so one of the things I really loved about the announcement itself, outside of the cards, whether I loved or didn't love the Duskblade and the Seeds of Agony banning, they had very good explanations for why they did it, why the bans happened, what happened in the production of the cards specifically. So what they talked about with Seeds of Agony is when they were designing Monarch as a set, they kind of had this thing in mind where they were going to make Chain sort of like the villain of the set. And during the design process, they had lined up 3 large, maybe even 4 large concealed draft events like the Calling. And so Chain was kind of designed in this space where, like, if you're playing Chain in a draft, you're not going to get 9 Seeds of Agony. You're not going to get all these Unhallowed Rites. So it's going to be a lot less over the top. But what happened, because we did run into this pandemic, is 3 of the events had to be canceled, and the 4th one got pushed into Q4 of this year, I believe, or next year. So it was kind of another thing where it was a little bit of, they were designing for a situation similar to like the Duskblade, where it just sort of things beyond their control kind of happened, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is
this is too
good for what it's going to get played in.
So that it's sort of a comedy of errors. But the thing that I do very much appreciate about what Legend Story Studios has come out and said so far is that they did own up to it as a mistake. And mistakes do happen. Even the most seasoned gaming companies still make mistakes when it comes to balancing and stuff. That it seems super obvious to you and me because we have, there's thousands of other people playing. They're all talking on the internet. They're able to sort of congeal this strategy together and be like, wow, obviously this is the best. This has risen to the top. This is the best strategy. But when you're dealing with a team of, I'm not sure how many people are at Legend Story Studios that are actually dealing with balance. But let's say even if it's a team of 50 people, 100 people, that's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the actual players that are experiencing these cards. And just it's a lot easier for us to look back and say, well, why didn't they do this? You find out afterward. I really do respect the fact that they called it a mistake. It was a mistake. It's something that they'll look for in the future. They're growing. It's still a new game. So I don't really hold it against them. I like the fact that they didn't wait for a big tournament to say, by the way, Duskblade is banned.
As soon as they saw it was a mistake, they're like, well, we've made a mistake. We're going to let everyone know, here's...
Instead of allowing people to top armories and stuff with, with Duskblade chain and have it be a menace for 2.5, 3 months. Instead, they could just say, you know what? You can still play this in Blitz, but in competitive constructed, which is something that we really think is important. We're going to take this off the table, see how it feels. I think that just about wraps up my thoughts on the bans. Overall, I think it's probably well warranted.
I don't think anything is over the top. I don't think the meta is going to collapse. I think chain's still going to be viable. I think it is a little bit of a gut punch for some of the people who did open cold foil Duskblades at pre-releases or who will open them in their boxes, but unfortunately that is I guess part of the TCG life.
You shouldn't really think of it as like as an investment anyway. That's something that's been popular in a lot of other TCG games. Like even there's a huge wave of Pokemon investment right now. I really don't believe that that's how it should be. I mean, I do understand that they did create cold foils specifically for that like collectors thing, but even then it's like the stock market. Everything is volatile. Something can happen. Market crashes.
It's not a solid investment.
It's still a cool card. I'm looking forward to playing it with it in Blitz. That is my primary format after all, so it doesn't really affect me all that much.
I know. I want to play it with like not necessarily Chain. I want to try it with Briar and see what happens. I think she'll have some of the cards that I've seen. She really easily chains into this specific, satisfying this requirement, even maybe more so than Chain. And then she also has the ability to defend after that. So I think that might be a good call. So. Anyway, this was this episode of In Response. Thank you guys very much for tuning in and hanging out with us today. If you liked this sort of content, please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let us know what you think of the ban. Obviously, there are going to be. I've seen a lot of commentary that people are really upset about it because Chain is their favorite hero. But we're really interested to hear what you guys have to say. But until next time, we'll catch you later.
Hey, thanks for checking out the Spike Feeders on YouTube. Before you close the window, make sure you click subscribe for more great Flesh and Blood content.